You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. And today we're talking with Mr. Jimmy Nichols. All right, he's ridden bulls. He's worked in law enforcement. He was a rodeo clown. But more importantly, he's a part of something, a founder of something called Grabuone Outfitters. We're talking snakes on the show today.
This episode of the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks.
This is the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. And today, snakes and other critters. And in fact, Grabuone Outdoors with Jimmy Nichols. Jimmy, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Appreciate you having me here.
And it is a pleasure to be with you. And I have to ask, start me off here. Grabuone Outfitters. When did this come about? How did this all start?
It's a long story, Matt.
Well, we've got plenty of time.
Long story. Just to give you the basic rundown of what Grabuone Outfitters is about 30 years ago, a group of guys, me and some friends and some older gentlemen from our neighborhood, used to go over to Lake St. John, Louisiana, fishing. And, the older guys were catching, bluegills and white perch. And me and my first cousin were wading around the edge of the lake catching snakes. And so snakes was a hobby that I had since childhood, and had got my cousin involved. So he's out there. I'm sure his mama's real proud of me today. But he and I were catching snakes along the lake. But anyway, one day we were sitting in a boat over there with a guy named Rayford Palmer. He's deceased now. But everybody called him Uncle Rayford. He was about, to us, an old man then, but he wasn't about 65 years old. So anyway, we were sitting out there in a boat one day. He had a little old 6.5 Mercury or something on the boat, a little small, barely get you across the lake engine. And it was me, my first cousin, Mr. Rayford. And we'd gotten up next to some cypress trees, and there was this huge diamondback water snake lying on a limb right beside the boat. And of course, Mr. Rayford was, didn't want to get close to the snake. He was constantly looking at the snake and thinking about, matter of fact, had a 22 in a boat. He was thinking about shooting him. I told him, no, don't shoot snake. He's not bothering anything. So we were sitting there fishing, and Rayford had turned his head doing something with some bait. So I just reached over and grabbed the old big snake off the limb. And as I did, he locks onto my forearm. I mean, literally just whop. He grabs me good, and about that time, Rayford turns around. Of course, I play him on this. I started hollering, "Oh, God, I've been bitten by a cottonmouth." So Mr. Rayford panics. He takes his boat paddle. I didn't know if he was going to hit me, the snake, or what, but he starts saying some choice words and then fires the boat up. And I'm telling him, "Oh, you got to get me back to the pier. This is bad." And, of course, old boats, across the lake. Well, we make it back to the pier. We get to the pier. I kind of let the cat out of the bag. Rayford, it's just a water snake. I'm fine. I'm not hurt. Of course, my arm's bleeding a little bit where he bit me. But anyway, Mr. Rayford, after having a few more choice words with us about playing with snakes, told us we ought to just start catching snakes anyway because we wasn't worth a crap at fishing. And that's not exactly the words you use, but
right.
He told us we wasn't getting good at fishing anyway. So we jokingly say that's where it started. But I've always had snakes were kind of like my dog as a kid, I guess you'd say. I'm a dog guy too, but, I was always fascinated by snakes. And so we eventually moved that fishing trip from Louisiana over to Lake Washington in Greenville, and or just south of Greenville, Chatham. Lake's full of snakes, by the way. Mm-hmm. And we started going up there. Well, we continued going on what we call like a boys trip. We go up there 2 or 3 weekends out of the summer and hang out, and we get in a boat and go catch snakes. Well, we started having people following us around, taking pictures and, videos, whatever it may be. And you just got a huge following of local people that would come out and watch. So here's these nuts, from down in, central Mississippi up here in the Delta playing with snakes. And so somewhere along the way, we got in contact with some guys down in Natchez that had a TV show. It was called Redneck Adventures TV. It was a guy named Jimmy Allgood, Jim Bob, and Stork. But we got them to come over to film one of their shows, I guess you would say, or whatever they were doing at the time. So they come over and they went out and we did some video, and then they put it to air. Mm-hmm. But Jim Bob, while we were there, came up with this idea. Said, "Why don't you guys why don't you guys think about doing a snake grabbing rodeo? And I'm thinking, what is a snake grabbing rodeo? I mean, I never heard of one before, So he said, well, what you could do is do this for a benefit. And so we came up with an idea or plan to put together an event every year, one time a year, first weekend of every June, to raise money for somebody who has cancer, or somebody's had a life-changing traumatic event, or just maybe bad times, whatever it may be. And we actually did one for a hospice center up in your place, Sanctuary Hospice.
Yeah,
we actually did the event. Yeah, we did the event one year for them, raised about, I don't know, somewhere around $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, something like that. This is back probably 10 years ago now, maybe. But anyway, the event just started growing. I mean, we started doing this every June. What we do is we bring in everyday people. We have 5 or 6 teams every year of anywhere from 8 to 10, 15 people on some of them. We put together teams, kind of like a bass fishing tournament. And we let these individuals go out on a lake with one of our guides. We have one of our guides with every team just to make sure everybody's doing it safe. And of course, abiding by the law. There are laws governing, the collection and catching and what have you, snakes as well. So we have one of our guides with them. So they go out, and the team that catches the most snakes, wins first place. Then you have a second place and third place.
Any kind of snake?
No, we limit our snake grabbing on the water to water snakes.
Water snakes.
Now, we've had a mishap or two you may want to ask about in a few minutes, but we've had a couple people doing things they wasn't supposed to be doing. They spent a couple of days in the hospital. So it's a little bit more serious than a bass tournament, I guess you would say. But we do it by numbers. Whoever catches the most wins first, second, third place. We have 3 teams that actually win. But the key to this benefit is we're raising money for somebody who's either got cancer or, like I said, had some type of life-changing experience or something, or maybe injured in a car wreck that's paralyzed, whatever it may be. But it's grown from, when we were struggling to raise, $1,000, $1,500 to last year, we wrote a check for close to $65,000.
Wow.
And then this year, it looks like we'll probably surpass that by a lot. So, So we're pretty excited about the way it's grown.
Yeah. It sounds to me like this is something that you mentioned, being a kid and not being afraid of snakes. So you were just kind of born that way? Well,
there's this, I have to call it a rumor, because people are not really born scared of snakes. A baby will pick up anything.
Yeah.
What happens is when mom and the baby's in the yard and a snake's seen, then mom reacts certain ways.
Right.
And if they, what I call, overreact or start screaming and yelling, and that puts fear in that child right there. That's which snakes shouldn't be handled by anybody who don't know how to handle them. I'll be the first to tell you that. Mm-hmm. They should be respected and just left alone. But when a kid sees that from a parent, then naturally they grow up with that fear of snakes. That's where most people get their actual fear of a snake.
Yeah. And so for you, I mean, there had to be some moment as a young person that was sort of kind of taking you over the edge, where now the fear of them is gone. And maybe it was picking up a snake for the first time.
Well, one thing I do remember, and I heard my mom tell the story before, she said one day she was doing some work in a flower bed, planting some flowers or whatever, and she said she heard me behind her saying, "Is this a snake?" And I do not remember this because I obviously was small. And she turned around, and I had a pretty good-sized speckled king snake in my hand. And, of course, mom was one of those that reacts pretty, she gets pretty excited with snakes. So I do remember some conversations with her, up till I was probably 8 or 9 years old. Stay away from them blooming snakes. Yeah. Don't touch them. You're going to get bit. You're going to die, what have you. But somewhere, like you said, along the way, I saw or did something that I guess triggered that it's just another animal. And if they're respected and, you learn their behaviors, and the type snakes is very, very important, by the way.
Sure.
But if you learn that about them and just learn how snakes react to different environments, just like we do, or different threats, then you can come out of this with, pretty safe, I guess you'd say.
Right. Jimmy, we even have these discussions, with friends, and then sometimes it's on social media. I've been in on these discussions. Sometimes it's been on my radio show. There will be like a little semi-argument that'll pop up, And it's some people that will go, I hate all snakes, kill them all. I don't care what they are. And then the other folks saying, no, there are good snakes. You shouldn't kill them. And we get a little bit of an argument going. I think I know where you might fall, but what would you say in that argument?
I respect people's thoughts, and I do know there's a lot of old myths that are just impossible to break. I hear them all the time. Just this weekend, I was out doing, I'm not a herpetologist by education, or I'm just kind of a self-taught. I've done a lot of studies, a lot of reading. I've worked with a lot of herpetologists here in the state, Terry Vandeventer, some of those guys. I've done a lot of stuff, collecting snakes for Terry that he does. He was doing some studies. He's done some photographs and stuff for books and stuff that he does, and educational type stuff. So spent a lot of time out there with snakes. But just this weekend, for example, I was literally laying on the ground beside a pretty good sized cottonmouth, taking some real close up pictures.
Are those the ones you posted on Facebook?
Yeah.
That's all,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at those.
So, there's an old myth that cottonmouths are just this terrible, nasty, mean, aggressive snake. And they do put on a pretty good display. But if you look at one of the videos, which I sometimes struggle with posting some of them because I'm scared that a kid might try to do some of the same things that I do with some of those snakes, which is not recommended at all. But part of that also is to educate or to help people understand that they're really not as mean as you think they are. They're very defensive. Just like, you're laying flat on your belly and you're where you are in the environment, and this 6 foot, basically monster to him walks up, he's going to react to that. But very, very rarely does that snake actually strike unless you put some type of force against him. If you put your foot on him, obviously he's going to bite you. But as you can see in some of those videos, I take my boot and literally move them around. I let them crawl. Don't do this at home, but, I've had them crawl over my boots and everything else. And even after they've been aggravated a little bit, and they rarely actually bite. Now, again, I'm telling, anybody listening to this, don't go out in the wild and think that a cottonmouth won't bite you, because they will. Just like, a dog sometimes that never bit anybody will bite you. But back to where I stand with that is I believe all of them are good. They all have a purpose, but I also respect people who protecting their homes or their pets or their children. If they feel like that snake needs to be removed, however they want to remove him, I don't really have a problem with it. But I like for people to see that they're really not as bad as you think they are.
Yeah.
A lot of that's just a fear that's been instilled in us since, like you said, childhood, that it's actually wise to have a little fear of them. Because like I said, some of them can hurt you, and they can hurt you pretty bad, but rarely does a person ever die from a snake bite.
Right. Very rarely.
I think there were 5 maybe in the United States last year.
And it seems to me that too, one of the areas that we could make up a lot of ground, whether it's, somebody like me, even as an old guy, I still got a lot to learn, but especially younger people, we could make up a lot of ground in the education process where we can identify them. That seems to be the big gap. Like someone like me, I could easily misidentify one, even, from a few feet away.
Well, Mississippi, we have 4 what I call the primary groups of venomous snakes. We have the cottonmouth, the copperhead, the rattlesnake, and the coral snake. What I try to tell people is if you learn to identify just those 4, the rest really don't matter.
Okay.
Now, there is that remote slight chance that there's an escaped snake from someone who may be venomous, of course, but that's almost,
right.
Almost
needle in a
not
haystack sort of thing.
Yeah, there's not that many people who actually keep and collect venomous snakes that we would have to worry about. There are a few out there. Now, I've known some people. When I was working in law enforcement, we were doing a search warrant one night, and the guy had 2 monocle cobras. In the house. Years and years ago, I got a call when I was at MBN because everybody knew I was kind of local snake guy. I got a call. There was a snake found in a garage in Jackson, Mississippi, that actually was a Grabuone viper, which was obviously an escaped snake, but they learned quickly where it came from. It was real close to where he was located.
So this is a little bit of a yes/no question. I realize that, but would you say, Jimmy, that you've always had sort of a natural fascination with snakes?
Oh yeah,
you just have.
Yeah.
So where do you think that comes from?
I really don't know. I mean, I can't explain it. I think I grew up a daredevil, literally. I rode a few bulls. I was a rodeo clown. I worked for the Bureau of Narcotics for 30 years, or right at 30 years. And so everything I did seemed to have a little bit of an edge on it, that could go bad at any moment. So I don't know if it's just the way like you said, the way I was born. I don't know. They just never really, I've never had any fear of a snake at all. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I respect them. I don't want a rattlesnake laying beside my feet, and I don't want to wake up with one, lay them beside me in a tent or something, obviously, but they just don't really scare me.
Yeah. All right. Again, I've got 1,000 questions I can think of that probably not one related to another. I'm just fascinated. I'm fascinated with you and your familiarity with snakes. Okay. What about when people say to me, and I've had them say to me, here's a kind of good snake that you should have around your house because they actually defend against bad snakes. Is that a true thing?
That is a true statement. We have a couple snakes in our state that well, let me back up. Almost any snake will eat another snake.
Okay.
Especially snakes of another species. But the king snake, for example, in Mississippi, we had the speckled king, and I think we got some prairie kings up north. But king snakes if you don't like snakes, if you can stand a king snake, that's the guy to have. It's like they're on a mission to catch copperheads. That's kind of for whatever reason, they love a copperhead. But, in lakes, like at Lake Washington, where we do our snake grabbing rodeo, have actually witnessed this myself, is water snakes will eat cottonmouths.
Okay.
Now, occasionally, a cottonmouth will eat a water snake, but the water snakes have managed to greatly outnumber the cottonmouths up there. So we don't see, I've had fishermen come back and say, man, I saw 30 cottonmouths a day. He actually saw 30 water snakes.
Yeah.
We've actually had these rodeos take place where we caught 266 snakes in 4 hours and not one cottonmouth.
Wow.
I mean, not even one seen, maybe one seen, but I mean, out of 266 actually captured by all the teams combined. We had one person come back and say, or I think in that particular one, we had nobody come back and say they saw cottonmouth. Now, we've had 2 rodeos where we had people who stepped out on the edge a little bit and grabbed a hold to one they shouldn't have grabbed a hold to, and ended up about 3 days in the Greenville hospital. Mm-hmm. But most of that was for observation and infection, making sure, the antibiotics work and that type of stuff. But, that again is pretty rare here.
Okay. So at an event like that, in a handful of hours, almost 300 snakes, and they're water snakes. What do you do with them? Like a fishing tournament, they're going to release them?
We release them right back. We, of course, in Mississippi and in most states, like I said earlier, there's laws governing what you can do with snakes, as far as possession and capture, what have you. So if I remember this right, if it hadn't changed, there's 4 per species per person that you can actually possess in the state. But we return all the snakes back to the lake, back to their natural environment, because they're actually doing a role there in that lake. They're eating sick and dead fish, frogs, other animals that might be diseased around the water. Snakes actually consume them. So they do a lot, believe it or not, for the environment.
Really interesting. Okay, and a person like me, I can participate.
Oh, yeah.
In the rodeo.
So you're coming, right?
Well, okay. I was wondering if you were going to make me sign up. I've never actually picked up a live snake by hand. Now, I've kicked some and swatted some with a shovel, and we had 2 snakes in the house. They in the middle of a radio show. Jimmy, I was on the air. Okay, I have a radio studio in my house. I was on the air, and about mid-sentence, and had about 15 minutes to go before I hit a commercial break, and the door swung open, and it was my wife, and she said, "Get off the radio, there's a snake in the house," and slammed the door. And I still got to talk for at least, and she is the sweetest, nicest, Jesus-loving Christian woman I know. But if you could see the text that she was sending me in that 15 minutes before I got down there, and it wasn't one snake, it was 2 that had gotten in. they had crawled into a basket, of little plush dog toys and things, and we dumped it out, and there's 2 snakes. But I didn't reach down and grab those, even though they were non-poisonous. But to do this and be a part and participate, I got to pick one up. Is that the deal?
We might let you skate without having to do it. Well, if this makes you feel any better, this is probably going to turn into a little challenge for you here. John Bond actually went with us.
Okay, he's done it.
Todd Wade went with us.
Okay.
So Todd and John both participated in one of the CMT shows. We actually had a TV show that came from this. So
Right.
so Todd and John Bond came up and shot a CMT series with them.
Well, John's a little crazy now. I don't know Todd that well, but John will do just about anything once.
John's a mess. He's a mess.
He's a great guy.
He's a good guy. I talk to him, pretty regular still to today.
Well, if John did it, I might need to at least try it once.
You can't let him out, do you?
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we would go, and then it would be solo, and I'd have a guide, or I'd be with a group. How's that work?
You'd be on a team.
Okay, you're on a team.
We'd put you on a team.
And you have one guide?
There's a guide. And two, one thing to remember, this is the 15th year we've done this event. And so we got guys that have been literally doing it for 15 years now that are pretty much guides themselves. Occasionally we'll get somebody that had, like you, that had never fooled with snakes or may have a little problem identifying them. But there's so many people around you that really know now, what they're doing, that our guides just kind of sit in the boat now and watch those guys do it.
I see.
Because we got to hand it off one day if we continue to do it. What we hope happens with this, number one, is education. Educating people that every snake that you see is not a bad snake and shouldn't die, maybe. And then the fundraiser. It's turned into we now partnered with a 501, and it's turned into I'm not going to say a monster, but we all have full-time jobs still, all 4 of us that actually do this, and it's pretty difficult to do this fundraiser every year because it's grown so much. It used to be just a trip. We raised $2,000 or $3,000 and give a check to somebody, and we thought we had done something. And now it's turned into, we got 2 different accounts we have to manage, and it's totally nonprofit. We benefit absolutely not 1 cent from it. It's all sponsor-based. We've got people who've donated side-by-side, stuff like that this year for us to auction off that we hadn't done yet, which is going to turn this into probably the biggest one. Well, we know right now it's the biggest one we've ever done, and we don't know how much bigger yet. But, and the beauty of that is we're going to write an 11-year-old cancer patient a check at the end of the day. And, again, the educational part, though, to me has kind of been makes me feel good, or our guys feel good, because now I have people sending me live pictures of snakes saying, hey, I just saw this in the yard. I just want to make sure it is what I think it is, and I let him live. And used to, I got them, they were chopped up in about 14 pieces. Can you identify the snake? I said, yeah, he's dead.
Dead snake.
The dead snake. It don't matter now. But again, a lot of those snakes that have been killed in those instances were, good rodent killers.
Yeah.
They help keep mice down. They help keep other, pests away from the house. And I know, I get it. It is a snake. But I've had people actually tell me they can live with a snake quicker than they can live with a rat, So, so a lot of my friends and people around that I know personally have sent me pictures now saying, hey, just want you to know I let this one go. We let him make it. And they sent me a cottonmouth or rattlesnake every once in a while. It didn't make it, but they let another snake survive.
Yeah.
And probably what you saw in your house, I'm not sure, but if they were the little small, about 12, 14, 16-inch snakes, the most common snake we see, or I see in houses, and I get these calls literally almost every day, a text or a picture or something. It's usually a DeKay's brown snake, not always, but that's kind of the number one snake that shows up in the house. They eat grub worms and small insects, stuff like that, but they're adults at about 14 inches in size.
Okay.
A lot of people think it's a baby snake when it's actually an adult. Now, there are some baby snakes that show up in houses. I'm not saying that that's the only snake, but that is the most common snake we see in houses, especially in central Mississippi. And y'all got them in Tupelo too.
We do, yeah.
DeKay's brown snakes are probably the most common snake in the state.
That might have been what it was. What I learned is that even if you're on live radio and your wife says there's a snake in the house, whether you can go to a break or not, you go to a break and handle it.
Hard break, right?
Take a break. So ways that people can find you. Obviously, the name Grabuone Outfitters. I found the Facebook page really easily. A really good, healthy number of followers and good social media presence right there. Where'd the name come from? There has to be a little story about the name Grabuone.
That's a good one. I'm glad you asked, because a lot of people do. How did you come up with Grabuone Outfitters? We were in a boat one day at Lake Washington, as you can imagine, and we had caught, 15, 20 snakes. And this was just us. It wasn't at a rodeo. It was just like a guy's trip. A bunch of our friends got together and went up to the lake. And we didn't go up there with intent of catching snakes on this particular trip. It was just a boating trip, right? Lake Washington, beautiful lake, one of our great resources in Mississippi that our friends here at Department of Wildlife have done an excellent job of making sure the wildlife there, the fish and things are doing well. But the lake's just beautiful. So we go up there outside the rodeo occasionally ourselves. But anyway, we were up there one day, and I have an uncle, my mama's brother, who's the chief of police in Morton, was in the boat with us. And he's not a big fan of snakes either, by the way. So we had about 10 or 15 snakes in a live well that we, just happened to see and went over and caught and put in a live well. So my uncle's sitting there, and he decides he's going to hold one. So he opens the live well and he's looking in, and you can see him shaking his head just in anguish. He'd start with his hand, and then finally he just shuts his eyes, goes into the live well. And I mean, 2 or 3 of them hanging on his arm. I mean, 'cause he grabs a wad of snakes, and they grab him.
Yeah.
And my cousin, sitting, same cousin I talked about earlier, my first cousin was sitting in the boat beside me. And as my uncle grabbed those snakes, he said, "Grab you one, son." And Shane Gibson, one of our other members of the Grabuone group, was sitting there, and Joey Mays was in the boat with us also. Both of them almost simultaneously said, "Grab you one." Said, "Why don't we just call our thing Grab You One?"
There it is.
And then we came up with Outfitters. It's just kind of a spur of the moment deal. And then eventually we turned it into an LLC, and then now we're doing what we do. So.
Yeah.
I think that was in 2009. I think the hats got it on. Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, established 2009.
And we were doing this way before that as far as the trips, not the rodeo, but the trips.
Uh-huh.
And in 2009 when we actually put that name on it. So
yeah, really cool.
That's kind of how that happened. So.
All right. So inevitably there's somebody, probably several people listening to this show right now that were ever how many minutes in are thinking, Matt, get to it. Ask him how many times he's been bitten by a snake, or even have you ever been bitten by a poisonous one?
I've only been bitten once by a venomous snake.
Okay,
and it was painful. It hurts. I don't recommend it for a second.
How old were you?
It's been about 20 years ago.
Okay,
I was grown.
What kind of snake was it?
Copperhead. It's painful. And here's the crazy thing: I have handled snakes my entire life. I mean, literally. Now, I've been bitten by a bunch of non-venomous snakes because I don't handle them the same way. You just
right.
If it's a gray rat snake, I just reach down and get him, pick him up. I mean, the bites, you don't even know you've been bit usually. Yeah. If you see it, it hurts. If you don't see it, it don't hurt. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was actually, it was an accidental bite, which is, believe it or not, fairly rare. I mean, people step on them occasionally and get bitten here in the state, but I actually picked up a handful of pine straw. I had a wheelbarrow, moving some pine straw, and I grabbed him in a pile of pine straw.
How about that?
On the second time I picked up straw, it literally at first I thought a bee had stung me because it was just like an instant. And when I slung my hand back, he's hanging on to my knuckle. He literally went flopping out through there and I could see as soon as he was. I saw the snake when I snatched my hand back, and he was hanging in the skin on my knuckle, and I slung him like a helicopter. And I could see copperhead, and I'm going, oh gosh.
Yeah, here we go.
I didn't panic much. Because I've read a lot about snake bites. I've talked to my herpetologist friends. Terry Vanderventer's been bitten a couple times. Some other herpetologists I know have been bitten. And usually on our native snakes, I know this sounds crazy, but it's usually not nearly as bad as you think it's going to be. Now, rattlesnake bites tend to have a little different effect on the muscle tissue and stuff. But I knew when I saw it, I was in trouble as far as going to hurt. I'm probably going to have some swelling and some pain and have to deal with medicine and that type stuff. But I also knew that I've been snake bit. Let's go to the doctor. So I took myself to the local emergency room, and I did not do any antivenom, anti-venom, excuse me. I'm not against it by any means because some people require it, but I also know that depending on the swelling and other things that happens initially, whether or not I thought I needed. And I had some swelling, but that was pretty much it. Pain is awful.
Yeah.
It hurt.
And so in that scenario, would you say the first coaching point is not panic?
Yeah, of course. When you panic, it speeds up your heart rate, and things start happening. Like playing football,
tough.
For example. You get the adrenaline going, things happen. You know how it is after you have adrenaline dumps after big plays or whatever it may be. It's kind of the same thing in a traumatic event. You cannot stop that adrenaline. You're going to have it. But there's no reason to think you got to do 150 to get to the doctor. You've got plenty of time. Now, there are rare scenarios where people go into, they have, I can't get my words out, allergic reactions.
Yeah, anaphylactic.
Yeah, that happens, but it's fairly rare.
What are the chances, though, of you, someone who has sort of made a name for himself, as someone who's a snake expert, can identify them, will handle them, obviously the non-venomous, and it's an accidental thing of picking up pine straw, and that's how you were bitten by a venomous snake?
My mom to this day thinks I was still messing with a snake.
She doesn't believe you.
Because she said, I told you. I told you quit playing with him. But I literally grabbed him.
Yeah.
When I scooped up the pine straw, and that's when he just basically spun around, locked on that knuckle. It hurt. The pain's not instant, but it's pretty instant.
Okay.
But when you've been stung by a wasp, how it's got that burn, and then it just, you feel it getting tight like it's swelling. Pretty much the same.
Okay. Rodeo clown, riding bulls, law enforcement in narcotics and other things, and Grabuone outfitters. I mean, if you've got enough material to write a book, I would say, don't you agree?
Well, I'm working on one now. It's if the editor would leave me alone, it'd be finished. But I was hoping to actually have it out first of this year, but it didn't work out. I mean, I've had some family members sick, so I've been spending a lot of time with mom and dad and some things, unforeseen things that kind of slowed you down a little bit. But I plan on getting back behind the computer soon and trying to finish it. Like I said, I'm not English is probably the reason, and grammar was probably the reason the fifth grade was the toughest 5 years of my life.
Well, I'm glad you eventually got through there and didn't have year number 6 in the fifth grade.
It really wasn't, but my grammar's about like that on paper.
Well, I would read the book. I'll read it when it comes out. So good luck with that. And Jimmy, just really appreciate you spending some time with us. Telling us a little bit more about Grabuone Outfitters. For someone listening, if they want to see the content, get in touch, watch a video, catch up with you, what's the best place for them to go?
Well, we have 2 pages actually that I use a whole lot. Is obviously the Grabuone Outfitters. I think it's on Facebook. It's Grabuone, Grabuone Outfitters Inc. I believe.
Okay.
And then, of course, my personal page is my name, Jimmy D. Nichols, Jr. Okay. And I post a lot of videos and stuff there and then share them over to that page because, both of them have been followed pretty close because of this event. Sponsors are huge to us. We've got some great sponsors out there. We just got some people that really go out of the way to help us every year with this thing. So
really cool.
So it's followed pretty closely.
Well, it's good to talk to you, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, same here.
Jimmy Nichols from Grabuone Outfitters here on the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you outdoors.